Welcome back to the channel. In December 1979, the Soviet Union launched a massive invasion of Afghanistan. Planners in Moscow expected a quick operation, assuming their mechanized superiority would pacify the country in a matter of weeks. Instead, the Red Army walked into a meat grinder. They encountered a relentless, decentralized insurgency that bled them dry over the next decade. The local resistance used the rugged terrain to launch devastating ambushes against a superpower that seemed, on paper, impossible to defeat. But this entire conflict, the logistical failures, the mass uprisings, and the specific ways the invaders would fail, was laid out in startling detail almost a century before the first Soviet tank crossed the border, in 1886. This wasn't a lucky guess. The man who wrote those warnings forged the nation itself. He understood the bloodiest foundations of his country because he was the one who laid them. This is Abdurrahman Khan, known as the Iron Emir. He is the brutal architect of modern Afghanistan. Curious, how did a 19th century king foresee the fate of a Cold War superpower nearly 100 years before they arrived? He earned that foresight through a 21-year campaign of terror. He learned the exact nature of his people by personally attempting to break them. In 1880, Afghanistan was a violent patchwork of independent tribes. No central authority defined its borders. It was trapped in the Great Game, a fragile buffer between the British Empire in India and the Russian Empire to the north. Returning from exile, Abdurrahman Khan saw a path to power. He secured critical financial and military backing from the British, convincing them that he was the only man capable of stabilizing the border. To survive between two empires, he moved to consolidate absolute administrative control, stripping the tribes of the autonomy they had defended for centuries.
He used British subsidies to build a professional standing army. He turned this force inward, creating a state machinery designed to crush his own people. To secure his throne, he had to navigate a lethal web of competing interests. He crushed over 40 distinct tribal rebellions, led by rival families and local factions, many of whom are seen in this genealogical record. He systematically dismantled traditional power structures. He neutralized independent religious clerics, stripped tribal leaders of historic authority, and forced them to answer to Kabul. Resistance was met with brutal extremes. He used forced migrations to break ethnic strongholds, carrying out 100,000 executions to silence dissidents. He even enforced a policy of technological isolation. He banned railways and telegraphs, ensuring that foreign powers could never gain a physical foothold or move troops quickly through his newly defined borders.
Through this reign of terror, the Iron Emir learned exactly what makes his people tick. He saw that they were fiercely independent, deeply religious, and would fight to the death against any imposed rule. These were the lessons that informed his ultimate warning. In his 1886 writings, highlighted here, the Emir explicitly warned that Russia would one day attempt to conquer Afghanistan as a stepping stone to reach India. He predicted that the country's rugged terrain and poverty would starve a foreign army. He warned that invaders would be unable to carry enough food, forcing them to buy supplies from the Afghan people at high prices. Finally, he mapped out the psychological reaction. He argued that devotion to their Islamic culture would trigger an unstoppable mass uprising against any foreign society attempting to occupy their land. His 1886 text was an act of cold observation. He had spent decades watching his people resist his own attempts to subjugate them, and he simply applied that data to the next invader. When he died in 1901, the Iron Emir had achieved the impossible. He united the fractured tribes of Afghanistan under one flag and one central government. But his design had a fatal flaw. He established a lasting precedent of a central government that relies entirely on foreign money and weapons to violently suppress its own citizens. He left behind an explicit record of how Afghan resistance would function, a document the Soviet Union would fatally ignore 93 years later. If you enjoyed this look into the history of the Iron Emir, please subscribe, share the video, and turn on the notification bell to see more of our research.